The girl's hand trembled so violently the water glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the floor. She dropped to her knees, desperately gathering the broken pieces, whispering over and over, I'm sorry, please don't hurt me." Donna rushed over and knelt beside her. That's when she saw it. The girl's wrists, purple and yellow bruises in the shape of fingers. And when the girl looked up, her hollow eyes held a terror that made Donna's blood run cold. "Please," she breathed. "I haven't eaten in 5 days. He's watching me from the parking lot." If you believe everyone deserves a second chance, subscribe to my channel and follow this story to the end. Comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. Donna had been waiting tables at Rusty's roadside diner for 23 years. She thought she'd seen everything. Truckers crying into their coffee after losing custody battles. Runaway teenagers spending their last $5 on pie. Married couples screaming at each other until other customers complained. But nothing had prepared her for the girl who walked in at 2:47 on that Tuesday afternoon. She was young. Couldn't have been more than 18. But she moved like someone 3 times her age, each step careful and deliberate, as if her body might break if she moved too fast. Her clothes hung off her frame like they belonged to someone else entirely. An oversized gray hoodie swallowed her thin shoulders. Jeans that might have fit once now sagged around legs that looked like they could snap in a strong wind. The girl slid into the corner booth, the one furthest from the windows, and pressed herself against the wall like she was trying to disappear into it. Donna grabbed a menu and a glass of water, making her way over with the same friendly smile she'd perfected over 2 decades. "Hey there, sweetheart. Welcome to Rusty's. Can I start you off with something to drink?" The girl flinched. Actually flinched. Like Donna had raised a hand to strike her instead of offering a menu. "Just water," she whispered. "Please, just water is fine." Her voice was barely audible. Scratchy and raw, like she hadn't used it in days. Maybe weeks. Donna set down the glass and watched the girl reach for it. That's when she noticed the trembling. The girl's hands shook so badly that water sloshed over the rim before she could bring it to her lips. "You okay, honey?" The girl's eyes darted to the window, then to the door, then back to Donna. They were the eyes of a hunted animal. "I'm fine." She wasn't fine. Anyone could see that. But Donna had learned long ago that pushing too hard made people run. So she just nodded and set down the menu. "Take your time looking that over. Kitchen's open till 10. You just wave when you're ready." Donna walked back to the counter, but she couldn't shake the feeling crawling up her spine. Something was wrong. Something was very, very wrong. At the corner booth near the entrance, the Iron Brotherhood had already noticed. They came in every Tuesday and Thursday, a group of 12 bikers who looked like they'd walked straight out of a nightmare, but tipped like they'd won the lottery. Their president, a massive man with a graying beard and arms covered in military tattoos, went by Grizzly. Real name was Hank Morrison, Vietnam veteran's son, Korean War veteran's grandson, the kind of man who spoke softly because he never needed to raise his voice. "Donna." She looked up. Grizzly was watching her with those pale blue eyes that seemed to see everything. "Yeah, Hank, that girl." He nodded toward the corner booth. "She in trouble?" Donna shook her head. "Don't know yet, just got here." Grizzly's jaw tightened. He turned back to his coffee, but Donna noticed he'd shifted his chair. Now he had a clear line of sight to both the girl and the front door. The minutes ticked by. 5, 10, 15. The girl just sat there staring at the menu like it was written in a language she didn't understand. She hadn't ordered, hadn't moved. The water glass sat untouched after that first sip. Donna couldn't take it anymore. She grabbed the coffee pot, even though nobody at the girl's table had ordered coffee, and walked back over. "Honey, you sure I can't get you something? Kitchen makes a mean cheeseburger. Best in 3 counties if I do say so myself." The girl looked up. Donna felt her heart crack right down the middle. Up close, the girl's face told a story that made Donna want to scream. Hollowed cheeks that should have been round with youth. Dark circles under eyes that looked like they hadn't closed in days. Cracked lips that had gone too long without proper food or water. And beneath the collar of that oversized hoodie, the edge of something purple and ugly. A bruise. A fresh one. "I don't—" The girl's voice broke. She swallowed hard and tried again. "I don't have any money." "That's okay. First meal's on the house for new customers." It was a lie. Rusty's didn't have any such policy, but Donna would pay for it herself if she had to. The girl's eyes filled with tears. They spilled down her cheeks before she could stop them. "You don't understand," she whispered. "I can't. He'll see. He's watching." Donna's blood turned to ice. "Who's watching, sweetheart?" The girl's gaze flickered to the window. Donna followed it. There in the parking lot sat a black SUV with tinted windows, engine running, just sitting there. "How long has that car been there?" "He followed me from the gas station." The girl's voice was barely a breath now. "I ran when he went inside to pay. I thought I lost him. But he found me. He always finds me." Donna set down the coffee pot. She slid into the booth across from the girl, not caring that her manager would yell at her for sitting down on shift. "What's your name, honey?" The girl hesitated. Trust was clearly something she'd forgotten how to give. "Grace," she finally whispered. "My name is Grace." "That's a beautiful name. I'm Donna." "Grace, I need you to tell me what's going on. Who is that man in the parking lot?" Grace's whole body started to shake. Not just her hands anymore. Everything, like she was coming apart at the seams. "His name is Vincent. He said he was going to help me. 8 months ago. He said he had a modeling agency. That I could be a star. I was so stupid to—" The tears came faster now. "He took my phone. My ID. Everything. He locked me in a room with other girls. We couldn't leave. We couldn't call anyone. And he—" She couldn't finish. Her voice dissolved into sobs. Donna felt something she hadn't felt in years. Pure white-hot rage. She knew this story. She knew it because 25 years ago she'd lived her own version of it. Different details. Same nightmare. A man who promised the world and delivered hell. "Grace, listen to me." Donna reached across the table and took the girl's ice-cold hands in her own. "You're safe here. Do you understand me? You are safe." "No, I'm not." Grace shook her head frantically. "You don't know him. You don't know what he's capable of. If I don't go back out there, he'll come in. And he'll hurt anyone who tries to help me. He's done it before. Let him try." The voice came from behind Donna, deep and steady as a mountain. Grizzly had left his booth and now stood beside their table, his massive frame blocking the view from the window. Behind him, the other 11 members of the Iron Brotherhood had risen from their seats. They weren't making a scene. They weren't being threatening. They were simply present. A wall of leather and steel and quiet menace. Grace looked up at the giant biker with terror in her eyes. "Please don't make me go back. Please, I'll do anything. I'll wash dishes. I'll clean the bathrooms. I just can't go back out there." Grizzly's weathered face softened. He pulled out a chair and sat down, making himself smaller, less intimidating. "Nobody's making you go anywhere, kid." His voice was gentler than Donna had ever heard it. "My name's Hank. That SUV been following you long." Grace nodded, wiping her eyes with her sleeve. "He has men everywhere. He knows everything. He told me if I ever ran again, he'd find my little sister. She's only 14. He has her picture. He knows what school she goes to." Grizzly's jaw tightened. A dangerous light flickered in his eyes. "Where are you from, Grace?" "Nebraska. A little town called Fairbury. I came to Oklahoma 8 months ago because Vincent promised me a job. A real job. And instead," Grace's face crumpled. "Instead, I woke up in a basement with 5 other girls. He took our clothes so we couldn't run. Gave us just enough food to stay alive. Made us do things." Her voice dropped to a horrified whisper. "Made us do things for money. For his money. We never saw a penny. If we fought back, he beat us. If we tried to run, he beat us worse. One girl, Maria, she tried to jump out a window. He broke both her legs and made us watch." Donna felt sick. Physically, violently sick. "That's trafficking," she said, her voice shaking. "Grace, that's human trafficking. That's not just a crime that's federal." "I know what it is." Grace's hollow eyes met hers. "But he has cops on his payroll. Judges too, probably. He brags about it. Says no one will ever believe a used-up piece of trash like me." The words hit Donna like a physical blow. Used-up piece of trash. She'd heard those words before. From her ex-husband. Every night for 7 years. "He's wrong," Donna said fiercely. "He is so wrong, Grace. You are not trash. You are a survivor." "Am I?" Grace laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I haven't eaten in 5 days. I drank water from gas station bathrooms to stay alive. I slept behind a dumpster last night because I was afraid to close my eyes anywhere he might find me. That's not surviving. That's barely existing." Grizzly leaned forward. "Donna, get this girl whatever she wants from the menu. Put it on our tab." He didn't look away from Grace. "When's the last time you had a real meal, kid?" "Monday. Last Monday. One of the other girls snuck me half a sandwich when Vincent wasn't looking." 1 week. She'd been running on half a sandwich for 1 week. "Get the number 4 special," Grizzly said. "Double portion. Extra biscuits." Donna moved to stand, but Grace grabbed her wrist with surprising strength for someone so frail. "You don't understand. If he sees me eating, if he sees me talking to you, he'll know I told someone. He'll come in. He'll make a scene, tell everyone I'm his crazy girlfriend having an episode. He's done it before. People always believe him because he's handsome and charming, and I'm just—" She gestured at herself, at the hollow cheeks and dirty clothes and the desperation in her eyes. "Then let him come." The voice belonged to a biker at the next table, a man with a scarred face and a patch that read, "Sergeant at Arms." His name was Tommy Switchblade Martinez, and he'd spent 20 years as a homicide detective before joining the Brotherhood. "Let him walk right in here and try to take you." Switchblade cracked his knuckles. "See what happens." Grace shook her head frantically. "You don't understand. He has a gun. He always has a gun." "So do we," Grizzly said calmly. 12 of us, all licensed, all veterans. And unlike your friend out there, we know how to use them." The diner had gone quiet. The other customers were watching now. A family with 2 young kids at a table by the jukebox. An elderly couple sharing a slice of pie. 2 truckers at the counter who'd stopped mid-conversation. "Maybe we should call the cops," the father of the young family suggested nervously. "This sounds serious. Already done?" This came from a biker near the window, a man called Reaper, who'd served 3 tours in Afghanistan. He held up his phone. "FBI field office in Oklahoma City. They're very interested in a black SUV with plates registered to a shell company connected to 6 missing persons reports." Grace's eyes went wide. "You called the FBI?" "Brotherhood's got a network." Grizzly's voice was steady. "Anti-trafficking task force. We've been tracking patterns like this for 3 years, ever since my daughter—" He stopped. His jaw worked for a moment. When he continued, his voice was rougher than before. Ever since my daughter Lily got taken, by men just like your Vincent, she didn't make it. But we swore on her grave that we'd spend the rest of our lives making sure other girls had a chance she never got. The diner fell completely silent. Donna watched Grace's face change. The fear was still there. But now there was something else, something that looked almost like hope. You do this for strangers. We do this for Lily. Grizzly's voice cracked slightly on his daughter's name. And for every girl like her. Like you. The front door of the diner jingled. Everyone turned. A man stood in the entrance, tall, well-dressed, brown hair perfectly styled, a smile that probably worked wonders on people who didn't know any better. He was handsome in a magazine cover way that felt artificial, practiced. His eyes swept the diner until they landed on Grace. The smile widened. There you are, baby. His voice was smooth as honey. You had me worried sick, running off like that without telling me. He started walking toward the booth, moving with the confidence of a man who'd never been told no in his life. Come on, sweetheart. Let's get you home. You know how you get when you forget to take your medication. Grace had gone completely rigid. She wasn't breathing. Her eyes were fixed on Vincent with the look of someone watching their death approach. Donna stood up, blocking his path. She's not going anywhere with you. Vincent's smile flickered. Just for a moment. Just long enough for Donna to see the monster underneath. I'm sorry, who are you? The woman who's telling you to leave. Vincent's laugh was dismissive, condescending. Ma'am, I appreciate your concern, but this is my girlfriend. She has mental health issues. She gets confused sometimes, runs off, tells stories. He shook his head sadly. It's heartbreaking, really. But I love her anyway. He reached past Donna, reaching for Grace. A massive hand closed around his wrist. Grizzly had moved so fast that Donna hadn't even seen him stand. She said she's not going. Vincent's face twisted. The mask slipped for a moment, revealing the cold fury beneath. Take your hand off me, now! Make me! The diner held its breath. Vincent tried to pull away. Grizzly's grip didn't budge. It was like watching a man try to free himself from a steel trap. You don't know who you're dealing with. Vincent's voice had lost its honey. Now it was pure venom. I have friends. Important friends. I could have this place shut down with one phone call. That's funny. Grizzly's voice was deceptively calm. Because I have friends too. They work for the FBI. They're real interested in talking to you about a girl named Maria who tried to jump out a window. And one named Sarah, who disappeared from Tulsa 6 months ago, and about a dozen others who've been reported missing in a 200-mile radius. Vincent went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, you do, and so do they. Grizzly nodded toward the window. Vincent looked. 3 black SUVs had pulled into the parking lot. Not his SUV. Different ones. Government plates. His face changed completely. Gone was the charming smile. Gone was the concerned boyfriend act. What remained was something ugly and desperate and dangerous. You bitch! He lunged toward Grace. 12 bikers moved as one. Grace screamed. Vincent hit the floor before he could take another step. Switchblade had tackled him from the side. 2 other bikers pinned his arms. A third had his knee on Vincent's back. Grace, close your eyes. Donna pulled the girl against her, shielding her face. It's over. It's okay. It's over. But it wasn't over. Vincent was laughing. Even face down on the linoleum with 3 bikers holding him down, he was laughing. You think this changes anything? He spat blood on the floor. You think I'm alone? I have partners. I have people who will come for her. For all of you. This isn't going to end just because you called some cops. The front door opened again. Two FBI agents walked in, badges, visible hands on their weapons. "Vincent Cross." Vincent's laughter died. "You're under arrest for human trafficking, kidnapping, assault, and about 15 other federal charges were still adding to the list." They hauled him to his feet, handcuffed him, started reading his rights. As they led him past the booth where Grace still cowered, he stopped, locked eyes with her. "This isn't over, Grace. You know it isn't. My people will find you. They'll find your sister, too. 14 years old, right? Goes to Fairbury Middle School. What do you think they'll do when they learn you talked?" Grace let out a sob. Grizzly stepped between them, blocking Vincent's view. "Get this piece of garbage out of my sight!" The FBI agents dragged Vincent through the door. A moment later, he was gone, shoved into the back of one of those black SUVs, driven away. Grace watched through the window. She didn't move, didn't blink, didn't seem to breathe. "Is it over?" she whispered. "Is it really over?" Donna held her tighter. "The hard part is, sweetheart. The hard part is over." But Grace was shaking her head. "He wasn't lying. About his partners. About my sister. There are others. More men like him. More girls like me. They'll know I talked. They'll come for me." Grizzly knelt down beside the booth. His voice was soft but certain. "Then we'll be ready for them." Grace looked up at him, at this massive, terrifying man who had just saved her life. "Why?" she asked. "Why would you do this for me? You don't even know me." Grizzly's weathered face held a pain that seemed older than time. "Because 3 years ago, nobody did it for my daughter, and I swore on her grave that I'd spend the rest of my life making sure no other girl went through what she did." He reached into his leather jacket and pulled out a worn photograph. A girl about Grace's age smiling at the camera with the kind of pure, untouched joy that life hadn't gotten around to destroying yet. Her name was Lily. She was 19. She wanted to be a nurse. Grace stared at the photograph, at the face of a girl who could have been her sister, her friend, herself. What happened to her? Grizzly's jaw tightened. "Same thing that almost happened to you, only nobody was there to stop it." He tucked the photograph back into his jacket close to his heart. "I couldn't save Lily, but I can save you. That's why we're here. That's what the Brotherhood does now, because every girl we help is a chance to tell Lily we didn't forget her, that her death meant something." Grace was crying openly now, not the terrified, hopeless tears from before. These were different. These were the tears of someone who'd just remembered what it felt like to be human. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry about your daughter." "Don't be sorry." Grizzly's voice was rough with emotion. "Just eat your food, get strong, and when you're ready, help us help other girls. That's how you honor Lily. That's how you honor yourself." The FBI agent who'd stayed behind approached their table. A woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. "Miss Grace, I'm Agent Patricia Wells. I'm going to need to ask you some questions. But first I want you to know that you're not in trouble. You're a victim, and we're going to protect you." Grace nodded shakily. "There are others," she said. "Other girls, in the house where he kept us. I don't know the address, but I can describe it. Green door, chain-link fence, 2 pit bulls in the yard." Agent Wells' expression sharpened. "Can you remember anything else? Street signs, landmarks?" "There was a church across the street, white with a blue steeple, and I could hear a train at night, close enough to feel the vibration. The agent was already on her phone relaying the information." Grizzly watched the exchange with grim satisfaction. "How many girls, Grace?" 5. "When I left, there were 5. But girls came and went. Some got sold. Some just disappeared." Her voice broke. I don't know what happened to them. We'll find them. Agent Wells pocketed her phone. Local PD is already mobilizing. If your information is accurate, we could have those girls out within the hour. Grace's eyes went wide. Within the hour? You might have just saved 5 lives tonight, miss. That took courage. Grace shook her head. I didn't do anything brave. I just ran. Running was the bravest thing you could have done. This came from Donna, who hadn't let go of Grace's hand through any of this. Some people never find the strength to run. The diner had started to come back to life around them. The family with young kids was preparing to leave, the father casting nervous glances at the bikers who'd just taken down a human trafficker in the middle of his dinner. The elderly couple had ordered more coffee and were watching the scene with the kind of quiet fascination that suggested they'd be telling this story at their church group for years to come. One of the truckers at the counter stood up and walked over to the booth. He was a big man, barrel-chested with hands like catcher's mitts. Name's Earl, he said, not to Grace or the bikers, but to Donna. I've been hauling freight on these roads for 30 years, seen a lot of things, but I ain't never seen anything like what I just saw. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a wad of bills. That girl needs help. This is what I got, about $300. It's not much, but it's something. He set the money on the table. Before anyone could respond, the elderly man from the corner booth stood up. He walked over slowly, using a cane, his wife following close behind. Margaret and I, we don't have much, he said. His voice quavered with age, but his eyes were sharp. 42 years of marriage, we've seen our share of troubles. But this girl... He looked at Grace with a kindness that seemed to cut through everything else. This girl needs people in her corner. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a checkbook. We were going to use this for our anniversary trip to Florida, but I think maybe there's a better use for it. He wrote out a check and handed it to Donna. $500. It's not much, but it's what we have. Grace was staring at them, at these strangers who were emptying their wallets for a girl they'd never met. I don't understand, she whispered. Why would you do this? You don't know me. The elderly woman smiled. It was the kind of smile that had weathered decades of life's storms and come out stronger. Sweetheart, we don't have to know you. We just have to see you. One by one, other customers started approaching. The family with kids left a handful of 20s. A young couple on a date added $50. Even the cooks from the kitchen came out contributing what they could from their tip jars. The pile of money on the table grew. $300, $800, $1,200, $1,500 collected in the span of 15 minutes from strangers in a roadside diner. Grizzly watched the scene unfold with something that looked almost like satisfaction. That's for a motel room, he said to Grace. A good one, until we can get you somewhere safer. What about the house where he kept me? Grace's voice was barely audible. What if his partners come looking? They know my face. They know my name. Switchblade pulled out his phone. Brotherhood's got a safe house about 40 miles from here, run by a woman named Clara. Used to be a victim herself 20 years ago. Now she helps girls like you get back on their feet. New ID if you need it. Job training. The works. Grace's eyes filled with tears again. I don't know how to thank you. Any of you. I walked in here thinking I was going to die tonight. I thought he was going to find me and drag me back and make me disappear like the others. And instead, she couldn't finish. The emotion was too big for words. Donna pulled her close. You don't have to thank us, honey. You just have to promise me one thing. Anything. Promise me that someday when you're stronger, when you've healed, you'll help someone else. The way we helped you. That's how this works. That's how we beat men like Vincent. We keep paying it forward until there's nowhere left for them to hide. Grace nodded against Donna's shoulder. I promise. Agent Wells reappeared at the table. Miss Grace, I just got word. Local PD found the house. Green door chain link fence, just like you described. They're going in now." The diner fell silent. Everyone watched Agent Wells' face as she listened to her phone. Seconds passed. 10, 20, 30. Then her expression changed. Relief flooded her features. 5 girls. All alive. All recovered. They're on their way to the hospital now. Grace let out a sound that was half sob, half laugh. "They're okay. They're really okay. Because of you. You saved them, Grace. Don't ever forget that." The celebration that broke out in the diner was subdued but genuine. The truckers clapped each other on the back. The elderly couple embraced. The bikers raised their coffee cups in a silent toast. But Grizzly wasn't celebrating. He was watching Grace's face, watching the way her hands still trembled, the way her eyes still darted to the door every few seconds. "The battle's won," he said quietly, so only she could hear. "But the war isn't over. Men like Vincent, they don't work alone. They have networks, partners, clients. Cutting off one head doesn't kill the snake." Grace nodded slowly. "I know. He told me. Bragged about it, actually. Said he had friends in high places. Cops, lawyers, businessmen. Said even if he got caught, the others would keep operating." Grizzly's eyes hardened. "Names. Did he ever mention names?" Grace closed her eyes, thinking, remembering. 1. He mentioned one name a lot, someone he called the Judge. I never met him, but Vincent said he was the one who placed the orders. Told Vincent what kind of girls the clients wanted. Grizzly and Switchblade exchanged a look. "The Judge." Switchblade's voice was grim. "We've heard that name before. Never been able to pin down who it is." "He's careful," Grace whispered. "Vincent said he's been doing this for 20 years without getting caught. Said he has connections everywhere. Prosecutors, sheriffs, maybe even FBI." Agent Wells stiffened. "What did you say? FBI?" Grace's voice was barely audible now. "Vincent said someone in the FBI feeds them information, warns them when raids are coming. That's how they've stayed ahead for so long." The silence that followed was deafening. Agent Wells pulled out her phone and stepped away from the table, her face unreadable. Grizzly watched her go. "This just got a lot more complicated," he murmured. Donna felt a chill run down her spine. "What do we do now?" Grizzly looked at Grace. At this broken, starving, terrified girl who had walked into a roadside diner looking for a glass of water and instead stumbled into the middle of something much bigger than any of them had realized. "Now," he said slowly, "we find out just how deep this rabbit hole goes." Grace looked up at him with haunted eyes. "And if it goes all the way to the top, if the FBI can't be trusted, if there's nowhere safe," Grizzly's face hardened into something ancient and fierce, "then we become the safe place. The Brotherhood protects its own. And as of tonight, Grace, you're one of us." He reached out and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Eat your food. Get some rest. Tomorrow we start planning. Because this isn't just about saving you anymore. This is about burning the whole damn network to the ground." Grace stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly she reached for the plate of food that had been sitting untouched in front of her. She picked up a fork. She took a bite. And for the first time in 8 months, Grace allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she might actually survive this. The diner hummed with quiet activity around them, coffee cups being refilled, plates being cleared, normal sounds for a normal evening. But nothing about this evening was normal anymore. Agent Wells returned to the table, her face pale. "I just got off the phone with my supervisor. The information about a potential FBI leak, he wants it buried. Said it's unsubstantiated. Told me to focus on the case we have and not go chasing conspiracies. Grizzly's eyes narrowed. And what do you think? Agent Wells hesitated. Looked at Grace. Looked at the bikers. Looked at the pile of money on the table that represented the goodwill of strangers. I think my supervisor just got a phone call from someone he's afraid of. She pulled out a card and handed it to Grizzly. This is my personal cell, not the bureau line. If Grace remembers anything else, anything at all, she calls me directly. Not the field office. Me. Grizzly took the card. You're risking your career. Some things are more important than careers. Agent Wells looked at Grace one more time. You're a brave girl, Grace. Braver than you know. Whatever happens next, remember that. She turned and walked out of the diner. The door swung shut behind her. Silence settled over the corner booth like a heavy blanket. Finally, Donna spoke. What now? Grizzly stood slowly. His joints cracked. He suddenly looked every one of his 62 years. Now we get Grace somewhere safe. Somewhere even the judge can't find. And then, he paused, his eyes going distant. Then we go hunting. Grace looked up at him. Hunting. For the judge, for the network, for every monster who thinks they can prey on girls like you and get away with it. His voice dropped to a growl. Lily didn't get justice, but I swear on my life, Grace, you will. He turned to his men. Iron Brotherhood. We ride at dawn. Until then we watch. We wait. We protect. 12 voices answered as one. We protect. Grace watched them disperse, taking positions around the diner. Some by the windows, some by the doors, some outside in the parking lot, watching for any sign of trouble. She was surrounded by strangers who had become her guardians, by bikers who had become her family, by a waitress who had become her lifeline. Donna, she whispered. Yeah, honey. Do you really think I can survive this? All of this? Donna squeezed her hand. I know you can. Because I did. 25 years ago, I was you. Different monster, same nightmare. And I survived. I built a life. I found people worth living for. When she smiled through her own tears. And now, Grace, so will you. Grace looked down at her half-eaten meal, at the cold eggs and soggy toast that represented the first real food she'd had in a week. She picked up her fork. She started eating again. And outside in the darkness beyond the diner's glowing windows, the Iron Brotherhood stood watch. 12 warriors in leather and steel standing guard against the monsters that lurked in the shadows. The war was just beginning. But Grace wasn't alone anymore. And that made all the difference. The safe house sat 40 miles from Rusty's diner, and Grace hadn't slept the entire drive. Every pair of headlights in the rearview mirror made her flinch. Every shadow along the highway looked like Vincent's SUV. Clara met them at the door. She was a small woman in her 50s, with silver hair and eyes that had seen too much. She took one look at Grace and opened her arms. Come here, child. Grace fell into the embrace and sobbed. She couldn't help it. The kindness was too much after months of cruelty. I've got you, Clara murmured. You're safe now. Nobody's going to hurt you here. Grizzly stood in the doorway watching. Clara, we've got a situation. This one's bigger than the usual rescue. Clara's eyes sharpened over Grace's shoulder. How big? The judge. Clara went still. Her arms tightened around Grace. You're sure? The girl heard the name. Vincent worked for him directly. Clara pulled back and looked at Grace with new intensity. Sweetheart, I need you to listen to me very carefully. The man they call the judge has been running this network for 2 decades. We've been trying to find him for years. If you know anything at all, it could help us bring down the whole operation." Grace wiped her eyes. "I don't know much. Vincent never let us hear details. But sometimes when he was drunk, he talked. He said the judge was untouchable. Said he had a system that couldn't be broken." "What kind of system?" "Girls came in through different channels. Some were runaways, some were recruited online like me. Some were brought in from overseas, but they all went to the same place eventually. An auction." Clara's face went pale. "An auction?" "Once a month. Vincent said the clients came from all over, rich men, powerful men. They bid on girls like we were cattle." Grizzly's hands clenched into fists. Where do they hold these auctions? I don't know. They blindfolded us when they moved us. But I remember the smell, old wood and cigar smoke, and I could hear water, like a lake or a river." Clara and Grizzly exchanged a look. "That matches the intel we've been gathering," Clara said quietly. "Property somewhere along the Arkansas River. We've narrowed it down to 3 possible locations, but we've never been able to confirm." When Grace's stomach dropped. "The auction? When is the next one?" Clara hesitated. "Based on the pattern, 3 weeks from now." 3 weeks, Grace's voice cracked. "That means more girls, more victims." "We know." Grizzly's voice was heavy. "That's why we need your help, Grace. Everything you can remember. Every detail, no matter how small." Grace closed her eyes. The memories she'd been trying to bury came flooding back. The basement, the other girls, the sounds that haunted her nightmares. "There was a girl," she whispered. "Her name was Sophia. She'd been there longer than anyone. She said she'd been to 2 auctions and got sent back both times because she fought too hard. Vincent hated her for it. Where is Sophia now?" "I don't know. She was there when I ran. She helped me escape, actually. Created a distraction so I could slip out during the transfer." Clara gripped Grace's shoulders. "Grace, this is important. Did Sophia ever mention where the auctions were held? Any detail at all?" Grace thought hard. Her head pounded with the effort. "She said something once, about a farmhouse. Said it had a red barn that looked pretty from the outside but was hell on the inside. She said if you stood on the roof you could see a church steeple across the water." Grizzly pulled out his phone. "Red barn, church steeple visible across water. Property along the Arkansas River." He started typing. "That narrows it down significantly." Clara led Grace to a worn couch and made her sit. "You need to rest, sweetheart. You've been through hell, and your body needs to recover." "I can't rest." Grace's voice was fierce despite her exhaustion. "Not while Sophia's still there. Not while other girls are waiting to be sold." "You won't help anyone if you collapse." Clara's tone was firm but kind. "Eat something. Sleep. We'll continue this in the morning." Grace wanted to argue, but her body betrayed her. The adrenaline that had kept her running for days was finally draining away, leaving nothing but bone-deep exhaustion. Clara brought her soup. Real soup, homemade with chunks of vegetables and tender chicken. Grace ate it so fast she barely tasted it. "When did you last have a real meal before tonight?" "The diner. Before that?" Grace had to think. "Maybe a week ago. Vincent only fed us enough to keep us alive. Said hungry girls were more obedient." Clara's expression hardened. "That man is going to rot in prison for the rest of his life." "Will he? He said he had powerful friends. Said they'd get him out." "Not this time." Grizzly had returned from making his calls. "FBI's got him on federal charges. He's not getting bail. He's not getting a deal. He's done." Grace wanted to believe him. But 8 months of learning that men like Vincent always won had taught her to expect the worst. What about his partners, the judge? Grizzly sat down across from her. That's what we're going to figure out. But not tonight. Tonight you sleep." Grace opened her mouth to protest, but Clara was already guiding her toward a small bedroom. Clean sheets, a soft pillow, a door that locked from the inside. "Lock it if it makes you feel safer," Clara said. "Nobody will open it without your permission." Grace's eyes filled with tears again. "I haven't had a door I could lock in 8 months." Clara hugged her once more. "You do now. Sleep well, sweetheart." The door closed. Grace locked it. She stood there for a long moment, just listening to the silence. Then she collapsed onto the bed and fell into the deepest sleep she'd had since the nightmare began. She woke to screaming. Her own screaming. The nightmare had been so vivid. Vincent's face, his hands around her throat, his voice whispering that she'd never escape, that he'd find her, that he'd make her pay. The door rattled. "Grace. Grace, are you okay?" Clara's voice, worried, urgent. Grace stumbled to the door and unlocked it with shaking hands. Clara stood there in a bathrobe, her face creased with concern. "Nightmare," Grace nodded. She couldn't speak. Her throat was raw from screaming. "They'll get easier," Clara said softly. "I know it doesn't feel like it now, but they will. I used to have them every night. Now it's maybe once a month." "How long did it take?" "Years. But it does get better. I promise." Grace leaned against the doorframe. The adrenaline was draining away again, leaving her feeling hollow. "What time is it?" "Just after 6. You slept about 5 hours." It felt like 5 minutes. Clara guided her to the kitchen. Coffee was already brewing. The smell was so normal, so ordinary, that Grace almost started crying again. "Grizzly's been up all night," Clara said. "He and the boys have been working the intel you gave us." "Did they find anything?" "They think so. Come see." In what had once been a living room, Grizzly had set up a command center. Maps covered the walls. Photographs were pinned to a corkboard. 3 other Brotherhood members sat at laptops, their faces lit by screens. Grizzly looked up when Grace entered. "Good. You're awake. We need you to look at something." He handed her a tablet. On the screen was a satellite image of a property. Large farmhouse, red barn, river running along one edge. "Is this it?" Grace studied the image. Her heart started pounding. "I don't know. I never saw it from above, but—" She zoomed in on the barn. "That shape, the way it's positioned, it feels right." "Look at this." Grizzly swiped to another image. A church with a white steeple photographed from across the water. Grace's breath caught. "That's it." Sophia described that exact steeple. She said you could see it from the roof. Grizzly's jaw tightened. "Property's owned by a shell company, same one that owned Vincent's SUV. We traced it back through 6 layers of corporate ownership. Who's at the end? That's the problem. The final owner is a trust, anonymous, protected by about a dozen laws designed to hide rich people's assets." Grace felt her hope deflating. "So we can't find out who the judge is?" "I didn't say that." Grizzly's eyes held a dangerous gleam. "The legal route is blocked. But there are other ways to find information." One of the Brotherhood members looked up from his laptop. "Boss, I've got something. Property records show the farmhouse was renovated 3 years ago. Contractor filed permits. He's got to have records of who paid him. Name, Mike Brennan. Local guy. Runs a construction company out of Stillwater." Grizzly was already reaching for his keys. "Switchblade, you're with me. The rest of you keep digging." He paused at the door and looked back at Grace. "You did good, kid. That church steeple might be the break we've been looking for." Then he was gone. Grace stood in the middle of the makeshift command center, feeling useless. "What can I do?" One of the bikers, a younger man with kind eyes and a beard that was still filling in, pointed to an empty chair. You can help us go through these files. We pulled everything public on Vincent Cross, looking for connections, patterns, anything that might lead us to his partners. Grace sat down. The screen in front of her showed page after page of documents, court records, financial statements, property transfers. I don't know how to read any of this. You don't have to understand the legal stuff. Just look for names, places, anything that seems familiar from your time with Vincent. Grace started scrolling. Most of it was meaningless to her, legal jargon and numbers that blurred together. Then she saw a name that made her blood freeze. Wait, stop. The biker looked over. What is it? Grace pointed at the screen with a trembling finger. That name, Marcus Webb. I know that name. How? He came to the house once. Vincent called him Mr. Webb, treated him like royalty. The other girls and I, we had to serve them dinner. Webb kept looking at us like we were items on a menu. The biker was already typing. Marcus Webb, let's see what we can find. Within minutes, they had a picture. A distinguished man in his 60s. Silver hair. Expensive suit. The kind of face you'd see on a campaign poster. Oh God, the biker's voice had gone flat. Grace, do you know who this is? No, I just know he gave me nightmares for weeks after that dinner. He's a state senator, Marcus Webb. He's been in office for 12 years, sits on the Judiciary Committee. Grace felt sick. A senator, not just any senator. He's the one who blocked 3 different anti-trafficking bills in the last decade. Said they were too expensive, violated privacy rights, bunch of legal excuses. The pieces were clicking together in Grace's mind. He blocked the bills because they would have exposed him. That's what it looks like. Is he the judge? We don't know yet, but he's definitely connected. Grace stared at the photograph, at the face of a man who smiled for cameras and shook hands with voters while secretly buying and selling human beings. We have to tell Grizzly. Already on it. The biker was typing furiously. This changes everything. Grace's phone buzzed, the cheap burner that Clara had given her the night before. She looked at the screen and felt her heart stop. Unknown number. But the message was clear. We know where you are. We're coming for your sister. Grace couldn't breathe. She showed the phone to the biker. How did they find my number? His face went pale. That's not possible. This phone was clean, brand new. We didn't register it anywhere. Then how? He grabbed his own phone and dialed. Boss, we've got a problem. Someone's tracking Grace. They just sent her a threat about her sister. Grace couldn't hear Grizzly's response, but she could see the biker's expression changing, going from worried to grim. Yeah, I understand. I'll lock it down. He hung up. What did he say? He said there's a leak. Someone's feeding them information. Could be FBI, could be local cops, could be someone we haven't even considered. Grace felt the walls closing in. My sister. They mentioned my sister. Emma. She's only 14. Where does she live? Fairbury, Nebraska, with my mom. She doesn't know anything about what happened to me. I couldn't contact her. Vincent had my phone. The biker was already making another call. We've got people in Nebraska. I'm having them do a drive-by. Check on your family. The minutes that followed were the longest of Grace's life. She sat rigid in her chair, staring at the phone, waiting for another message. Waiting for news about Emma. The phone rang. The biker answered. Yeah, you're sure? Okay, keep eyes on them. He hung up and looked at Grace. Your mom and sister are fine. They're at home. Our guys are going to watch the house from a distance. Nobody's going to get near them without us knowing. Grace sagged with relief. Thank God. But Grace, this means they're serious. They know about your family. They're trying to scare you into silence. It won't work. Grace's voice was steadier than she felt. I'm not going back to being silent. Not ever again. Clara appeared in the doorway. Grace, there's someone here to see you. Who? Clara stepped aside. Agent Wells walked in. She looked different from the night before. Tired, worried, like she hadn't slept either. Grace, we need to talk. About what you told us last night. About the FBI leak. Agent Wells looked around at the bikers, the command center, the evidence scattered across every surface. You need to know something. This morning I was taken off the case. Grace felt ice forming in her stomach. What? My supervisor called me in at 5 a.m., said I was too emotionally involved, said the case was being transferred to another agent. That's good, isn't it? More resources. No, Grace, it's not good. The agent they're transferring it to is named Daniel Marsh. He's the same agent who closed 3 trafficking investigations in the last 2 years. All of them went cold. No arrests, no convictions. Victims disappeared. The biker at the laptop swore under his breath. Agent Marsh, I've seen that name in the files. He was the lead investigator on a case that matched the judge's pattern. It got shut down due to insufficient evidence. Agent Wells nodded grimly. I think Marsh is the leak. I can't prove it, but I think he's been protecting the network from the inside. Grace's hands were shaking again. So, what do we do? We work outside the system. Agent Wells sat down across from her. I've got 30 days of leave saved up. I'm taking it. All of it. And I'm going to help you take these bastards down. You'd risk your career for this. My career. Agent Wells laughed, but there was no humor in it. My career means nothing if I spend it protecting monsters. I became an agent to help people like you, Grace. If the Bureau won't let me do that, then I'll do it on my own. The door opened. Grizzly walked in, followed by Switchblade. He took one look at Agent Wells and stopped. Patricia, what are you doing here? Same thing you are. Hunting. They pulled you off the case. This morning. Transferred it to Marsh. Grizzly's face darkened. That son of a bitch. It gets worse. Agent Wells pulled out a folder. I managed to copy some files before they locked me out. Vincent Cross made bail. The room went silent. Grace felt the blood drain from her face. That's not possible. You said he wouldn't get bail. He shouldn't have. Federal trafficking charges. Flight risk. But somehow a judge in Oklahoma City signed his release papers at 7 this morning. Cash bond posted by an anonymous donor. The judge, Grizzly said. He's protecting his people. And sending a message. Agent Wells looked at Grace. Vincent knows you're the one who talked. He'll be coming for you. Grace wanted to run. Every instinct screamed at her to flee, to disappear, to hide where no one could ever find her. But then she thought about Sophia, about the 5 girls who'd been rescued, about the other girls who were still trapped. Let him come. Everyone turned to look at her. Grace, you don't understand. Agent Wells started. No, you don't understand. Grace's voice was stronger than it had been since this nightmare began. I spent 8 months being afraid, 8 months being controlled, 8 months letting men like Vincent decide my fate. I'm done being afraid. Grizzly studied her for a long moment. What are you suggesting? Vincent knows me, trusts me in his own sick way. If he thinks he can get to me, maybe we can use that. Set a trap. You're talking about making yourself bait. I'm talking about ending this. Clara stepped forward. Grace, honey, think about what you're saying. You just escaped. You're traumatized. You're exhausted. This isn't the time to be making decisions like this. When is the time? Grace met her eyes. 3 weeks until the next auction. How many girls will be sold by then? How many more Lilies? How many more Sophias? Grizzly's jaw tightened at his daughter's name. She's got a point. Hank, no. Clara's voice was sharp. You can't seriously be considering this. I'm considering every option, including the ones we don't like. Agent Wells pulled out her phone. If we're going to do this, we need to be smart. We need backup that isn't compromised. I know people, former agents, retired officers, people I trust with my life. How many? Half a dozen, maybe more. All of them hate what the Bureau has become. Grizzly nodded slowly. Call them. We'll meet here tomorrow night. Work out a plan. Grace felt something she hadn't felt in 8 months. Purpose. What do I do in the meantime? You rest. Clara's voice was firm. You eat. You let your body recover from what it's been through. You'll need your strength for what's coming. Grace wanted to argue, but she knew Clara was right. She was running on fumes and determination. Neither would last forever. Okay, but promise me something. What? Promise me that when the time comes, you won't leave me behind. I need to be there when we take them down. I need to see it end. Grizzly walked over and put a hand on her shoulder. You have my word, Grace. When we go after the judge, you'll be there. You've earned that. Grace nodded. The tears threatened again, but she held them back. Thank you. All of you. For everything. Don't thank us yet, Grizzly said. We haven't won. We've just started fighting. He turned to his men. All right, everyone. You heard the plan. We've got 3 weeks to find the judge, expose his network, and shut down the auction. It's not going to be easy. Some of us might not make it. He looked around the room, at the bikers who had followed him through hell and back, at Agent Wells, who was risking everything, at Clara, who had dedicated her life to saving girls like Grace. But I'll tell you this. My daughter died because nobody was there to save her. Nobody fought for her. Nobody cared enough to risk anything. His voice cracked. I won't let that happen to another girl. Not while I'm breathing. Not while any of us are breathing. The room was silent. Then Switchblade raised his coffee cup. For Lily. One by one, the others joined in. For Lily. For Sophia. For Grace. For all of them. Grace watched these strangers, these warriors, these unlikely heroes, and felt something shift inside her. She wasn't a victim anymore. She was a survivor. And she was ready to fight. The contractor Mike Brennan lived in a modest house on the outskirts of Stillwater. Grizzly and Switchblade found him in his garage working on an old Chevy truck with grease up to his elbows. He looked up when the 2 bikers approached, and his face went pale. Whatever you're selling, I'm not buying. Grizzly held up his hands. We're not here to cause trouble, Mr. Brennan. We just need to ask you some questions about a job you did 3 years ago. I do a lot of jobs. Can't remember them all. This one you'll remember. Switchblade pulled out a photograph of the farmhouse. Red barn. Property along the Arkansas River. Ring any bells? Brennan's reaction was immediate. His wrench clattered to the concrete floor. His face went from pale to gray. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, you do. Grizzly's voice hardened. And I think you know exactly what that property's been used for. Brennan backed away, his hands shaking. Look, I just did the renovation. I didn't ask questions. The money was good and I needed it. My wife was sick. Medical bills were drowning us. Who hired you? I can't tell you that. Can't or won't. Both. Brennan's voice cracked. You don't understand. These people, they don't play around. I've got kids. Grandkids. If they find out I talked... Grizzly stepped closer. Mr. Brennan, I'm going to tell you something. That farmhouse you renovated, it's been used to hold kidnapped girls. Young women, some of them teenagers being sold like livestock. My daughter was one of them. She didn't survive. Brennan's face crumpled. Jesus Christ. So you can either help us stop these monsters, or you can live the rest of your life knowing you helped them do it. Your choice. The silence stretched between them. Brennan stared at the floor, his shoulders slumped, a man wrestling with his conscience. Finally, he spoke. I never met the owner. Everything went through a lawyer, guy named Patterson, Richard Patterson, has an office in Tulsa. Switchblade was already typing on his phone. Richard Patterson. Got him. Senior partner at Patterson and Associates. Specializes in corporate law and estate planning. He handled everything, Brennan continued. Payments, contracts, all of it. But there was one time near the end of the job when someone else showed up. Big shot in a fancy car. He walked through the whole property like he owned it. Which I guess he did. Grizzly's heart rate quickened. Did you get a name? No. But I got a look at his license plate. Old habit from my army days. You never know when you might need to remember details. You still remember it. Brennan nodded slowly. Some things you don't forget, especially when they give you nightmares. He recited the plate number. Switchblade typed it in. Running it now. This might take a minute. Grizzly studied Brennan's face. There's something else. Something you're not telling us. Brennan's jaw tightened. When I was finishing up the basement, I found something. Hidden behind a wall panel. I wasn't supposed to find it. What was it? A room. A small room with locks on the outside. And there were... His voice broke. There were scratches on the inside of the door, like someone had tried to claw their way out. Grizzly felt his blood turn to ice. Did you report it? I tried. Called the sheriff's office. Talked to a deputy. He said he'd look into it. Brennan laughed bitterly. 3 days later, 2 guys showed up at my house. Said if I ever mentioned that property again, my grandkids would end up in that room. The deputy. You remember his name? How could I forget Deputy Daniel Marsh? Switchblade's head snapped up. Marsh, as in FBI agent Daniel Marsh. I don't know about FBI. He was a deputy back then. Must have moved up in the world. The pieces were falling into place. Marsh had been protecting the network for years, first as local law enforcement, then inside the FBI itself. Switchblade's phone buzzed. Got the plate. Car was registered to a company called Midwest Holdings, same shell company that owns the farmhouse. He paused, scrolling through the results. But here's the interesting part. Midwest Holdings has one authorized driver on record. Who? Marcus Webb. Grizzly felt a grim satisfaction settle in his chest. The senator. Looks like we found our judge. Brennan looked between them, confusion on his face. The judge? What are you talking about? The man who runs the whole operation. The one who decides which girls get sold and to whom. We've been hunting him for 3 years. Brennan's face went even paler. A state senator. That's why nobody's been able to stop them. He's got connections everywhere. Not everywhere. Grizzly's voice was hard. Not with us. He turned to leave, then stopped. Mr. Brennan, I'd suggest you take your family on a vacation. Somewhere far from here. Don't come back until you see on the news that Senator Webb's been arrested. You really think you can take down a state senator? Grizzly's eyes were cold. I think we don't have a choice. They drove back to the safe house in silence. Switchblade kept glancing at his phone, waiting for updates from the team. Finally, he spoke. Boss, even if Webb is the judge, we can't just walk into his office and arrest him. He's got immunity. He's got lawyers. He's got half the state government in his pocket. I know. So what's the play? Grizzly stared at the road ahead. We don't go after him directly. We take away his protection first. Marsh Patterson, anyone else who's helping him. We expose them one by one until Webb is standing alone. That could take months. We don't have months. The auction is in 3 weeks. Then we need leverage, something that forces his hand. Grizzly's jaw tightened. We need grace. When they arrived at the safe house, they found chaos. Clara met them at the door, her face tight with worry. Grace is gone. Grizzly's blood turned to ice. What do you mean, gone? She was in her room an hour ago. I went to check on her and the window was open. She left a note. Clara handed him a piece of paper. The handwriting was shaky but determined. I'm going back. Sophia is still there. I won't let her die for helping me escape. Don't try to find me. This is something I have to do alone. Grizzly crumpled the note in his fist. That stupid, brave kid. We have to find her. Clara's voice was frantic. If she goes back to that house, they'll kill her. Or worse. Switchblade's face was grim. They'll use her to send a message. Grizzly pulled out his phone and dialed Agent Wells. Patricia, we have a problem. Grace is gone. She's trying to rescue another girl from the house where Vincent kept them. The house that was raided? She can't possibly think anyone's still there. She's not thinking. She's acting on guilt and trauma. We need to find her before Vincent does. Vincent's out on bail. He could be anywhere. Exactly. Agent Wells was quiet for a moment. I'll check traffic cameras, cell tower pings, anything I can access without raising flags. But Hank, if she's already at that house, then we're already too late. Grace moved through the darkness with her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. The house looked different at night. Smaller, somehow. Less terrifying. She knew that was a lie. The terror was still there, lurking behind every shadow. The front door was boarded up. Yellow police tape crisscrossed the entrance, but Grace knew another way in. The basement window that Vincent never bothered to lock because he thought the bars were enough. She'd spent 3 weeks testing those bars, loosening them bit by bit when no one was watching. Sophia had helped using a piece of metal she'd hidden in her mattress. The bars were still loose. Grace pulled them aside and squeezed through the narrow opening. The drop to the basement floor knocked the wind out of her, but she landed quietly. The smell hit her first. Mold and fear and something else. Something that smelled like death. Sophia. Her whisper seemed to echo in the darkness. Sophia, are you here? No response. Grace pulled out the small flashlight she'd taken from Clara's supply closet. The beam cut through the blackness, revealing the room she'd tried so hard to forget. The mattresses were gone. The chains were gone. But the scratches on the walls remained. Tallies marks counting the days. Names carved into the concrete. Maria, Jade, Sophia, Grace. She ran her fingers over her own name. She'd carved it the second week when she'd given up hope of anyone ever knowing she existed. A sound from above. Footsteps. Grace killed the flashlight and pressed herself against the wall, her heart slamming against her ribs. The footsteps moved across the floor overhead. Slow. Deliberate. The creak of someone who knew exactly where they were going. Then a voice that turned her blood to ice. I know you're down there, Grace. Vincent. I have to admit I'm impressed. Most girls, once they run, they never stop running. But you came back. That takes guts. The footsteps moved toward the basement door. Or maybe it takes stupidity. I haven't decided yet. Grace looked around frantically. There had to be another way out. There had to be. I'm going to give you one chance, Grace. Come up those stairs quietly and I'll make this quick. Keep hiding and I'll make it last for days. The door creaked open. Light spilled down the stairs. Grace saw the silhouette of Vincent's body blocking the doorway. She saw the gun in his hand. She had nowhere to go. Clock's ticking, Grace. What's it going to be? Grace stood frozen. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but there was nowhere to run to. Vincent had her trapped, just like before. Come on, sweetheart. Don't make this harder than it has to be. Grace's mind raced. She thought about Grizzly and his promise. She thought about Donna and her kindness. She thought about Sophia, who might already be dead because she'd helped Grace escape. She thought about giving up. Then she thought about her sister Emma. 14 years old. A target because of Grace's choices. No. She wasn't going to die in this basement. Not today. Vincent. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. I'll come up. But first tell me something. You're not really in a position to bargain, Grace. I know. I just want to understand. Why me? Out of all the girls you took, why did you spend so much time on me? Vincent laughed. It was an ugly sound. You really want to know because you reminded me of someone. My sister, actually. She had that same look in her eyes, that same stubborn streak. What happened to her? She ran away when she was 16. Never saw her again. Vincent's voice hardened. But that's not your concern. Get up here, now. Grace started up the stairs. Slowly. One step at a time. Her mind was working furiously. She needed a distraction. She needed something to throw him off balance. The FBI knows everything, Vincent. They know about the judge. They know about Senator Webb. They know about the auction. Vincent's laugh faltered. Nice try. Webb's untouchable. He's been doing this for 20 years. Then why did he post your bail? If he's so untouchable, why does he need you free? Vincent didn't answer, but Grace saw his grip on the gun tighten. I'll tell you why. She was halfway up the stairs now. Because you're the only one who can lead them to him. You're the weak link, Vincent, and Webb knows it. Shut up. That's why he sent you here, isn't it? To clean up loose ends, to make sure I never testify. I said shut up. But what happens when you're the loose end, Vincent? What happens when Webb decides you know too much? Vincent grabbed her arm and yanked her up the final stairs. His face was twisted with rage. You think you're so smart. You think you can play mind games with me. I think you're scared. Grace met his eyes without flinching. I think you know exactly what Webb does to people who become liabilities. Vincent raised the gun to her face. Say goodbye, Grace. The front door exploded inward. Grizzly hit Vincent like a freight train. The two men crashed to the floor, the gun skidding across the room. Grace scrambled away as more bikers poured through the doorway. Switchblade, Reaper. Others she didn't recognize. Vincent fought like a cornered animal, but he was no match for Grizzly's fury. Fist after fist connected with flesh. Blood splattered across the floor. Hank! Agent Wells' voice cut through the chaos. Hank, stop! We need him alive! Grizzly's arm froze mid-swing. His chest heaved. His knuckles were raw and bleeding. He looked down at Vincent's broken face. Give me one reason. Because he's going to testify. And Agent Wells moved past Grace and knelt beside the battered trafficker. Against Webb. Against the whole network. And in exchange he gets to live. Vincent spat blood. I'm not testifying against anyone. Yes, you are. Agent Wells pulled out her phone and showed him the screen. Because while you were hunting Grace, we were hunting your records. Financial transactions. Burner phone communications. Jeep's data from your vehicles. We have everything, Vincent. Enough to put you away for life. Webb will have me killed. Webb is going to prison too. The only question is whether you go down with him or help us put him there. Vincent's eyes darted around the room. At the bikers who wanted him dead. At Agent Wells who wanted him to talk. At Grace, who stood in the corner watching the man who had stolen 8 months of her life finally face justice. What kind of deal? Federal protection? New identity? Reduced sentence? Agent Wells stood up. It's more than you deserve, but it's the best you're going to get. Vincent closed his eyes. Fine, I'll testify. Grizzly hauled him to his feet. One wrong move, and the deal's off. Understand? Vincent nodded weakly. Agent Wells turned to Grace. Are you okay? Grace wanted to laugh. Okay. She'd just faced down the monster who'd haunted her nightmares. She'd nearly died in the basement where she'd been held captive. She was as far from okay as a person could get. But she was alive, and Vincent was in handcuffs. I will be, she said. Clara pushed through the circle of bikers and wrapped Grace in a fierce hug. Don't you ever do that again. Do you hear me ever? I had to try. Grace's voice was muffled against Clara's shoulder. Sophia helped me escape. I couldn't leave her behind. Clara pulled back, her face troubled. Grace, honey. Sophia wasn't in that house. The FBI checked every room when they raided it. Then where is she? We don't know. Grace felt her heart sink. She could be anywhere. She could be dead. Or she could be at the auction. Vincent's voice was hoarse. Blood dripped from his split lip. Webb moves girls around, keeps them in different locations until the big event. If Sophia's still alive, she'll be there. Grace turned to face him. Where is the auction? The farmhouse, same place you described. But they only use it one night a month. The rest of the time it's empty. When? Vincent smiled through bloody teeth. 2 weeks from Saturday. Grizzly stepped forward. That's 14 days. We need to get Webb before then. You can't arrest Webb before the auction, Agent Wells said. If he gets wind that we're onto him, he'll move everything. The girls, the evidence, all of it. We'll never find them. So we wait. We prepare. Agent Wells looked around at the assembled group. We have 2 weeks to build an airtight case. Vincent's testimony is a start, but we need more. Documents, witnesses, physical evidence. I can help with that. Vincent's voice was quiet now. Defeated. I kept records, insurance in case Webb ever turned on me, names, dates, locations, everything. Where are these records? Safety deposit box, First National Bank in Oklahoma City. I'm the only one with access. Agent Wells nodded. Tomorrow morning you're going to take us there. And if you're lying, if there's even a hint that you're playing us, I'm not lying. Vincent's eyes met Grace's. Something flickered in them. Something that almost looked like shame. I've done terrible things. Things I can never make right. But I'm not going to let Webb get away with it. Not anymore. Grace didn't know if she believed him. She didn't know if she could ever forgive him. But right now he was their best chance at bringing down the judge. And that was enough. They transported Vincent to a secure location, leaving Clara and 2 Brotherhood members to guard Grace. The safe house felt different now. Smaller. More fragile. The illusion of safety had been shattered. Grace sat at the kitchen table, a cup of cold coffee in front of her. Clara sat across from her, watching. You should sleep. I can't. The nightmares? Grace shook her head. It's not that. It's Sophia. I keep thinking about her, wondering where she is, what they're doing to her. We're going to find her, Grace. What if we're too late? Clara reached across the table and took Grace's hand. I'm going to tell you something I've never told anyone. When I was your age, I was in the same situation you're in. Different men, different city, same nightmare. I got out because someone risked their life to help me. A stranger who saw something wrong and decided to do something about it. Grace looked up. What happened to them? She died. Clara's voice was steady, but her eyes glistened. They caught up with her before she could get to safety. But she'd already made the call. The police found me, rescued me, shut down the operation. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Be grateful. That woman's sacrifice gave me a chance to live, to heal, to help others. And now it's my turn to give that chance to girls like you, like Sophia. Grace felt tears sliding down her cheeks. I don't know how to do this. How to be strong when I feel like I'm falling apart. You don't have to be strong all the time. You just have to be strong enough to take the next step, and then the one after that. Grace wiped her eyes. What if the next step is too hard? Then you lean on people who love you. That's what we're here for. The words hit Grace like a wave. Love. It had been so long since anyone had used that word in relation to her. You barely know me. I know enough. Clara squeezed her hand. I know you survived. I know you fought back. I know you risked your life trying to save someone who helped you. That tells me everything I need to know about who you are. Grace was quiet for a long moment. I want to be there. At the auction. When they take Webb down. Grace, I know it's dangerous. I know you think I'm not ready. But I need to see it end. I need to look him in the eye when they put the handcuffs on. Clara studied her face. We'll talk to Grizzly. See what he says. He already promised. He promised you'd be there when they went after the judge. He didn't promise you'd be in the middle of a raid. It's the same thing. No, sweetheart. It's not. Grace pulled her hand back. I'm not a child. I'm not a victim anymore. I'm a survivor. And survivors get to choose how their story ends. Clara was silent for a long moment. You're right. You're not a child. But you're also not invincible. The trauma you've been through, it doesn't just go away because you want it to. I know that. Do you? Because running off alone tonight, trying to play hero, that's not strength. That's self-destruction. The words stung because they were true. Grace looked down at her hands. I just wanted to do something, to feel like I wasn't helpless. You're not helpless, but you are part of a team now, and teams work together. They don't run off on suicide missions in the middle of the night. Grace nodded slowly. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Just be smarter next time. Clara stood up and moved to the window. Outside, 2 Brotherhood members sat in a truck, keeping watch. 14 days, she said quietly. 14 days until we take down an empire. A lot can happen in 14 days. Grace joined her at the window. What happens after? After Webb's arrested, after the auctions stopped. What happens to girls like me? You rebuild, slowly, painfully, but you rebuild. How do you know it gets better? Clara turned to face her. Because I'm standing here. 20 years ago, I was exactly where you are. Broken, scared, convinced I'd never be whole again. And look at me now. Grace looked. She saw a woman who had survived hell and come out the other side. A woman who had turned her pain into purpose. You think I can do that? I know you can. Grace's phone buzzed, the burner that Clara had given her to replace the compromised one. She looked at the screen. Unknown number. But the message was different this time. Grace, it's Sophia. I escaped. I need help. Please. Grace's heart stopped. Clara, look at this. Clara read the message, her face going pale. This could be a trap. Or it could be real. We need to tell Grizzly. There's no time. If Sophia really escaped, she's in danger. They'll be hunting her. Clara grabbed Grace's arm. You are not running off again. Do you understand me? Then come with me. Grace's voice was desperate. Bring the guards. Bring everyone. But we have to do something. Clara hesitated. Every instinct told her this was wrong. That it was too convenient. That they were being played. But she also remembered what it felt like to be hunted. To be desperate. To send a message into the void, praying someone would answer. She pulled out her phone and dialed Grizzly. Hank, we have a situation. Grace just got a message from Sophia. She says she escaped. A pause. It could be a trap. I know. But if it's not, another pause. Longer this time. Send me the location. We're on our way. Clara looked at Grace. He's coming. But you're staying here until he arrives. Grace wanted to argue. Every fiber of her being screamed to move, to act, to save Sophia the way Sophia had saved her. But Clara was right. She'd almost gotten herself killed tonight. She couldn't afford to make the same mistake twice. "Okay," she said. "I'll wait." Clara nodded, but she kept her hand on Grace's arm just in case. Outside, the sky was beginning to lighten. Dawn was coming. And with it, the next chapter in a war that had only just begun. Sophia was real. Grizzly found her huddled behind a gas station dumpster 6 miles from the farmhouse, shaking so badly she could barely stand. She'd escaped during a transfer, just like Grace slipping away when her captors stopped for fuel. When they brought her to the safe house, Grace was waiting at the door. The two girls stared at each other for a long moment. Then Sophia let out a sob and threw herself into Grace's arms. "You came back," Sophia whispered. "I can't believe you came back." "I had to." Grace held her tight. "You saved my life. I wasn't going to leave you behind." Clara guided them both inside, wrapping blankets around Sophia's thin shoulders. The girl was in worse shape than Grace had been. Thinner, more broken. 8 months more damage carved into her hollow face. "How did you get away?" Grace asked once Sophia had stopped shaking enough to talk. "They were moving us. 5 of us in a van. Driver stopped for gas, left one guard with us. I pretended to be sick, really sick, like I was dying. When the guard opened the door to check on me, I kicked him and ran." "What about the other girls?" Sophia's face crumpled. "I couldn't help them. I tried. I screamed for them to run too, but they were too scared. They just sat there." Grace felt her heart break all over again. "It's not your fault." "I left them, Grace, just like you left me." The words hit like a slap. Grace flinched. "I didn't mean to leave you. I thought I could get help and come back." "I know." Sophia's voice softened. "I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying I understand now. When you're running for your life, you can't stop to save everyone, no matter how much you want to." Grizzly appeared in the doorway. "Sophia, I need to ask you some questions. About the van, the guard, anything you can remember." Sophia nodded weakly. "There were supposed to be more of us. At the auction. Vincent said they were expecting 20 girls this time. Biggest event they'd ever done. 20 girls." Grizzly's jaw tightened. "Where are they keeping them?" "Different places. They move us around so no one location has too many. But they all come together the night before. At the farmhouse. The night before the auction. That's when they prepare us." Sophia's voice went flat. "Clean us up. Dress us in nice clothes. Make us look presentable for the buyers." Grace felt sick. "We have to stop it." "We will." Grizzly's voice was certain. "But we need more information. Sophia, did you ever see Senator Webb?" Sophia's eyes went wide. "The judge? You know who he is?" "We think so. Did you see him?" "Once. He came to inspect us before an auction. Walked down the line like we were cattle at a livestock show. Picked 3 girls to be featured. I wasn't one of them." "What happened to the ones he picked?" Sophia was quiet for a long moment. "I never saw them again." The weight of those words settled over the room like a funeral shroud. Agent Wells arrived an hour later with news that made everyone's blood run cold. Vincent's records were real. Names, dates, transactions going back 15 years. We've identified 47 victims. 12 are still missing. And Webb, his name is all over it. Direct payments from his campaign fund to shell companies. Personal correspondence discussing inventory and clients. It's enough to arrest him 10 times over. Grizzly's face was grim. "So what's stopping you? Politics." Agent Wells spat the word like a curse. "My contacts at the Justice Department say Webb has friends at the highest levels. They want to wait until after the election to move forward. The election is in 3 months. The auction is in 12 days. I know. 12 days, Patricia. 20 girls. I know. The room fell silent. Agent Wells took a breath, composing herself. There's another option. We go around the Justice Department. Take the evidence directly to the media. Force their hand. That could backfire, Clara said. Webb could destroy evidence, disappear witnesses, cover his tracks. Or it could create enough public pressure that they have no choice but to act. Grizzly shook his head. Too risky. If Webb gets spooked, those girls are dead. Then what do you suggest? Grizzly looked at Vincent, who sat handcuffed to a chair in the corner. We use him. Vincent looked up. Use me how? You're going to call Webb. Tell him everything's under control, that you handled the Grace situation and you're ready for the auction. He'll know something's wrong. I'm supposed to be in federal custody. As far as Webb knows, you made bail and went underground. We kept your arrest out of the news for exactly this reason. Vincent's eyes narrowed. And what do I get out of this? You get to live. Grizzly's voice was ice. That was the deal. You help us, you get protection. You don't help us. I hand you over to the families of your victims and let them decide what to do with you. Vincent's face went pale. Fine. I'll make the call. Agent Wells set up the recording equipment while Grizzly briefed Vincent on exactly what to say. One wrong word, one hint that something was off, and the whole operation would collapse. Vincent dialed the number with shaking hands. The phone rang twice. Vincent. Webb's voice was smooth, cultured, the voice of a man who'd spent decades in public service. I was wondering when I'd hear from you. Sorry for the silence, sir. Things got complicated. So I heard. The girl who escaped. Did you handle it? She won't be a problem anymore. Grace felt her stomach turn. Vincent said it so easily, so casually, like he was discussing a minor inconvenience rather than her murder. Good. And the authorities, still chasing their tails. They've got nothing solid. What about the FBI agent Wells? Off the case. Her own people pulled her. We're in the clear. Webb was quiet for a moment. You're sure about that? Positive. Everything's on track for the auction. It better be. We have important clients coming. Very important. This needs to go perfectly. It will. I guarantee it. Don't make promises you can't keep, Vincent. You know what happens to people who disappoint me. I've never disappointed you before. No, you haven't. Webb's voice softened slightly. Be at the farmhouse Wednesday night. We have preparations to make. Yes, sir. The line went dead. Agent Wells stopped the recording. We got him. That's enough to prove he's directly involved. It's not enough to save those girls, Grizzly said. We need to be at that auction. We need to catch him in the act. That's 11 days away. Then we have 11 days to get ready. The next week and a half were a blur of planning, surveillance, and preparation. The Brotherhood set up observation points around the farmhouse documenting every vehicle that came and went. They photographed faces, recorded license plates, built a comprehensive database of everyone connected to the operation. Agent Wells reached out to her trusted contacts, assembling a small team of former agents who'd left the Bureau in disgust when they realized how deep the corruption ran. Clara worked with Sophia and Grace, helping them prepare for what was coming. Counseling sessions, self-defense training, long conversations about trauma and healing and the importance of taking care of yourself before you could take care of anyone else. Grace threw herself into the preparations. She studied the farmhouse layout until she could navigate it blindfolded. She memorized the faces of Webb's known associates. She practiced staying calm under pressure, controlling her breathing, keeping her head when everything around her was falling apart. Donna drove up from Rusty's on the 5th day, bringing news that made Grace cry. Your mother called the diner. She's been trying to find you for months." Grace's hands started shaking. "How did she know to call there?" "The FBI agents who've been watching her house told her you were safe. They gave her my number." "Is she okay? Is Emma okay?" "They're fine, sweetheart. Worried sick about you, but fine." Grace broke down completely. The tears she'd been holding back for 8 months came flooding out in a torrent of relief and grief and longing. Donna held her the way Clara had, the way Grace's own mother would have if she'd been there. "She wants to talk to you, when you're ready." "I'm not ready." Grace's voice was muffled against Donna's shoulder. "I don't know how to explain what happened. How do I tell my mother I was sold like property? How do I tell my little sister her big sister was a slave?" "You don't have to tell them anything you're not ready to share. Just let them know you're alive. That's enough for now." Grace pulled back and wiped her eyes. "After the auction, after this is over, then I'll call. That's all I'm asking." The night before the auction, Grace couldn't sleep. She stood at the window of the safe house, watching the darkness outside, thinking about what tomorrow would bring. Sophia joined her after an hour. "Can't sleep either. Too much noise in my head." Sophia nodded. "I keep thinking about the other girls, the ones I left in the van, wondering if they'll be at the auction, wondering if I'll see them again." "We're going to save them." "What if we can't? What if something goes wrong?" Grace turned to face her. "Then we go down fighting, but we don't give up. Not now. Not after everything we've survived." Sophia was quiet for a long moment. "Grace, there's something I need to tell you. About the auction. About what happens there." "I know what happens. They sell girls to the highest bidder." "It's worse than that." Sophia's voice dropped to a whisper. "The buyers, they don't just bid on us. They test us first, to make sure we're worth the money." Grace felt ice forming in her stomach. "Test us how?" Sophia couldn't meet her eyes. "However they want. Webb calls it quality assurance. Says the clients expect to know what they're buying." The horror of it washed over Grace like a wave. "How many times did they—" "Twice. Before the auctions I attended." Sophia's voice was flat. "Dead. The third time I fought back. That's why they sent me back to Vincent. Said I was damaged goods." Grace pulled Sophia into a fierce hug. "I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry. Just make sure tomorrow goes right. Make sure Webb pays for what he's done." "He will. I promise." They stood there in the darkness, 2 survivors holding on to each other, drawing strength from their shared pain. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, the judge would face judgment. The morning of the auction dawned gray and cold. Grizzly gathered everyone for a final briefing. 12 Brotherhood members, 6 former FBI agents, Agent Wells, Clara, Sophia, Grace. "Here's how this goes down," Grizzly said. "We've got 2 objectives. 1, rescue the girls. 2, arrest Webb and everyone connected to him. Both objectives have to succeed. If we get the girls but Webb escapes, he'll disappear and start over somewhere else. If we get Webb but the girls get hurt, we've failed." He looked around the room. "This is not a military operation. Our goal is not to kill anyone. Our goal is justice. Everyone goes home safe. Everyone faces trial. Understood." Nods all around. "Good. Here's the plan. Vincent will arrive at the farmhouse at 6 p.m. as scheduled. He'll be wearing a wire. We'll have ears inside the whole time." Agent Wells took over. "My team will be positioned at 4 points around the property. We go in on my signal and only on my signal. No cowboy stuff. No independent action. We move as a unit." "What about us?" Sophia asked. "You and Grace stay in the command vehicle with Clara. You'll monitor communications and help identify victims as we bring them out." Grace's jaw tightened. That's not what Grizzly promised. The situation has changed. It's too dangerous. I don't care about dangerous. I care about being there when Webb goes down. Grizzly stepped forward. Grace, I understand how you feel. But Patricia's right. This is a law enforcement operation now. If civilians get hurt, the whole case could fall apart. I'm not a civilian. I'm a witness. I'm a victim. I have a right to be there. You have a right to see justice done. That doesn't mean you have to be in the middle of a raid. Grace wanted to scream. She wanted to fight. But she looked at the faces around her and saw the same concern, the same fear for her safety, the same love she'd come to depend on. Fine. I'll stay in the command vehicle. But the second it's safe, I want to be there. I want to look Webb in the eye. Done. Grizzly extended his hand. We've got a deal. Grace shook it. Let's end this. The hours crawled by. At 4 p.m., the Brotherhood took their positions. At 5 p.m., Agent Wells' team moved into place. At 6 p.m., Vincent's car pulled up to the farmhouse. Grace watched it all on the monitors in the command vehicle, her heart pounding so hard she could barely breathe. Vincent's voice crackled through the speakers. I'm inside. Webb's already here. So are the girls. How many? Agent Wells' voice was tight. I count 18, maybe more in the back. Stand by. We're waiting for the buyers to arrive. The next 2 hours were the longest of Grace's life. She watched luxury cars pull up to the farmhouse one by one. Men in expensive suits stepped out, looking around nervously before ducking inside. That's Senator Harrison, Agent Wells said, as one face appeared on camera. He chairs the Appropriations Committee. That one's a federal judge, Switchblade added, appointed by the last president. CEO of a Fortune 500 company, Clara said, pointing at another. His face is on business magazines every month. Grace felt sick. These weren't random criminals. These were the men who ran the country, men who made laws and decided cases and shaped the economy, men who were supposed to protect people like her. Instead, they were buying and selling human beings. At 8:30, Vincent's voice came through again. The auction's starting. Webb's taking bids on the first girl. Grace leaned forward, her eyes locked on the monitor. Now, she whispered. Can we go in now? Not yet. Agent Wells' voice was strained. We need to catch them in the act. Clear undeniable evidence. The minutes ticked by. Grace heard numbers being called out, amounts that made her stomach turn. 50,000, 75,000, $100,000 for a human life. Sold, Webb's voice echoed through the speakers. Lot number 1 goes to our distinguished guest from New York. Grace couldn't take it anymore. Patricia, please, we have to stop this. 2 more lots. We need Webb on tape making the sale himself. These are people's daughters, people's sisters. I know, and we're going to save them, but we have to do this right. The second lot sold for 80,000, the third for 120. Then Webb's voice came through again. And now, ladies and gentlemen, our featured attraction, a special request from one of our most valued clients. Grace heard footsteps, a door opening, a muffled cry. This one's been giving us trouble, Webb continued. But she'll learn. They all learn eventually. Vincent's voice cut in barely above a whisper. It's Sophia. He's got another girl named Sophia. Grace's blood turned to ice. That's impossible. Sophia's right here. But Sophia had gone pale as death. My sister, she breathed. He took my sister. The world tilted. Sophia grabbed Grace's arm. My sister's name is Sophia, too. She was taken 3 months ago. I thought she was dead. Grace, they have my baby sister in there. Grace didn't think. She didn't plan. She didn't wait for permission. She threw open the door of the command vehicle and ran toward the farmhouse. Behind her, she heard Clara screaming her name. She didn't stop. She couldn't stop, because somewhere inside that building, another girl named Sophia was about to be sold to the highest bidder. And Grace would die before she let that happen. Grace hit the farmhouse door at full speed. It crashed open and she stumbled into chaos. Men in suits scrambling for exits, girls screaming, Webb shouting orders that nobody was following. "FBI, nobody move!" Agent Wells' voice cut through the pandemonium as her team poured in from every entrance. The Brotherhood followed, forming a human wall between the buyers and the exits. Grace didn't care about any of it. Her eyes scanned the room, frantically searching for the girl Webb had called Sophia. She found her on a small stage at the far end. 14 years old. Terrified. Wearing a white dress that made her look like a sacrifice. Grace ran toward her. "Grace, no!" Grizzly's voice boomed across the room. Too late. Webb grabbed Grace from behind one arm, locked around her throat, a gun pressed to her temple. The room froze. "Everyone back." Webb's voice had lost its cultured smoothness. Now it was raw and desperate. "Back or I kill her." Agent Wells held up her hands. "Senator Webb, there's nowhere to go. The building is surrounded. Put down the weapon." "I'm not going to prison." Webb's grip tightened. Grace felt the barrel dig into her skull. "I've spent 20 years building this operation. You think I'm going to let some little whore destroy it?" Grace couldn't breathe. The pressure on her throat was cutting off her air. But she could see Sophia. The young Sophia still on the stage, frozen with terror. Eyes locked on Grace's face. Grace had to do something. "Senator," her voice came out as a croak. "Your daughter." Webb's body went rigid. "What did you say? Your daughter, Rebecca. She's 23 now. Works at a nonprofit in Portland. How do you know about my daughter?" "Vincent told me. He told me everything. About how she ran away when she was 16, about how you've been looking for her ever since." Webb's breathing had changed. Faster. More ragged. "Shut up. She ran because she found out, didn't she? Found out what her father really was. What he did to girls her age." I said, "Shut up. She's the reason you started this. You couldn't control her, so you found other girls you could control." The gun pressed harder against Grace's head. "One more word, and I pull the trigger." "Go ahead." Grace's voice was steady despite the terror coursing through her. "Kill me in front of all these witnesses, in front of the cameras, in front of your colleagues who still think they can buy their way out of this." She felt Webb's hesitation, the slight loosening of his grip. "Your daughter's watching, Senator. Not here, but somewhere. Eventually she'll see the footage. She'll see what her father did. What he was. Rebecca doesn't watch the news. She will for this. Everyone will. And when she sees you holding a gun to an 18-year-old girl's head, she'll know she was right to run. She'll know her father was exactly the monster she thought he was." Webb's arm trembled. "You don't know anything about my family. I know you lost her. I know you've spent the last 7 years trying to forget. I know that somewhere deep down, you're still the man who used to read her bedtime stories. The man who taught her to ride a bike. The man she called Daddy." Grace felt tears running down her cheeks. Not from fear, from something else. Something that surprised even her. "That man's still in there, Senator. He's the reason you haven't pulled the trigger yet." The room was absolutely silent. Webb's breathing was ragged now. The gun wavered. "I can't go to prison," he whispered. "I can't." "Then don't make it worse. Don't let the last thing your daughter sees of you be murder." For a long, terrible moment, nothing moved. Then Webb's arm dropped. The gun clattered to the floor. Grace collapsed forward, gasping for air. Grizzly was there instantly, pulling her away as agents swarmed Webb, forcing him to his knees. "You're under arrest," Agent Wells said, her voice cold. "For human trafficking, kidnapping, assault, and about 50 other charges we'll be adding over the next few weeks." Webb didn't respond. He just stared at the floor, his face blank. A man who had finally run out of moves. Grace stumbled toward the stage where young Sophia still stood frozen. "Hey," she kept her voice soft. "It's okay. You're safe now." The girl's eyes were wild, uncomprehending. "My sister," she whispered. "Where's my sister? She's outside. She's safe. She's waiting for you." "Maria!" A crack in the girl's voice. "Maria's here." Grace's heart clenched. Maria. Sophia's sister's real name was Maria. "Yes. She never stopped looking for you. She never gave up." Maria burst into tears. Grace helped her down from the stage, wrapping an arm around her shaking shoulders. Around them, agents were cuffing buyers reading rights, leading men in $1,000 suits toward waiting vehicles. Sophia burst through the door, her face streaked with tears. "Maria!" The sisters collided in the middle of the room. They held each other so tightly it looked like they'd never let go. Grace watched them, her own tears flowing freely. This was why she'd come back. This moment, this reunion, this proof that broken things could be made whole. Clara appeared beside her. "You scared me half to death." "I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry. Just don't ever do it again." Grace managed a shaky laugh. "I'll try." Grizzly joined them, his weathered face soft with something that looked like pride. "What you did in there talking Webb down, that took guts." "I just said what I felt." "That's exactly what I mean." He put a hand on her shoulder. "Lily would have liked you, Grace. She would have been proud to call you a friend." The words broke something open inside her. The dam she'd been holding back for months finally crumbled. Grace cried. Real tears. Healing tears. The kind that washed away 8 months of darkness and let the light finally break through. The aftermath took weeks. 23 girls were rescued from the farmhouse. 18 had been brought in for the auction. 5 more were found in a hidden basement kept as reserves in case the main inventory sold out. 47 men were arrested, including 2 senators, a federal judge, 3 CEOs, and the police chief of a mid-sized Oklahoma city. Agent Marsh was taken into custody at his home, still in his pajamas, sputtering about lawyers and wrongful arrest. The media called it the biggest human trafficking bust in American history. Cameras crowded outside the courthouse as one powerful face after another was led inside in handcuffs. Webb's trial was the centerpiece. The evidence was overwhelming. Vincent's records, Agent Wells' documentation, testimony from 23 survivors, including Grace. She sat on the witness stand for 4 hours, answering questions about the worst 8 months of her life. She didn't flinch, didn't break down. She looked Webb in the eye and told the world exactly what he was. When the jury came back with guilty verdicts on all counts, the courtroom erupted. Grace felt Donna squeeze her hand on one side and Clara on the other. "It's over," Clara whispered. "It's really over." But Grace knew that wasn't quite true. The trial was over. The arrests were over. The immediate danger was over. The healing was just beginning. 3 months after the raid, Grace called her mother for the first time. She sat in Clara's kitchen, the phone pressed to her ear, her hands shaking so badly she almost dropped it. "Hello," her mother's voice. The same voice that had sung her lullabies, that had scolded her for staying out too late, that had told her she could be anything she wanted to be. "Mom," Grace's voice cracked. "It's me." Silence. Then a sound that made Grace's heart shatter into a million pieces. Her mother was crying. "Gracie, oh my God, Gracie, is that really you?" "It's me, Mom. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for everything." "Where are you? Are you safe?" The FBI told us you were okay, but they wouldn't tell us anything else. We've been going out of our minds. I'm safe. I'm in Oklahoma. I'll explain everything when I see you. When can I see you? Grace looked at Clara, who nodded. This weekend. I'm coming home. The sound her mother made was half laugh, half sob. Emma, come here. Your sister's on the phone. A moment later, her little sister's voice came through the line. Grace, is that you? Where have you been? Why didn't you call? I thought you were dead. I'm sorry, Em. I'm so sorry. Are you okay? Did someone hurt you? Mom's been a wreck. She cries every night. Grace felt fresh tears sliding down her cheeks. I'm okay now. I'll tell you everything when I get home. Promise. I promise. I missed you so much, Grace. So much. I missed you too, baby. More than you'll ever know. That weekend, Grace flew home to Nebraska. Grizzly drove her to the airport himself. The whole brotherhood turned out to see her off, standing in a line outside the terminal like an honor guard. You take care of yourself, Grizzly said, pulling her into a fierce hug. And remember, you're always family. Wherever you go, whatever you do, you've got brothers watching your back. Grace hugged him back just as hard. Thank you. For everything. Don't thank me. Just keep being brave. Keep being you. She hugged them all. Switchblade, Reaper, the young biker with kind eyes whose name she'd finally learned was Danny. Men who looked like nightmares but had hearts of pure gold. Then she walked through security without looking back. She couldn't look back. If she did, she might not have the strength to move forward. Her mother and Emma were waiting at the arrival gate in Nebraska. They saw her before she saw them. Her mother's scream cut through the noise of the airport like a knife. Gracie! They ran toward each other, collided in the middle of the terminal. 3 bodies wrapped together so tightly that nothing in the world could tear them apart. My baby, her mother kept saying. My baby's home. Emma was crying too hard to speak. She just held on, her 14-year-old body shaking with sobs. Grace held them both. She was home. She was really home. The next year was the hardest of Grace's life, but it was also the most important. She started therapy, real therapy with a counselor who specialized in trafficking survivors. She talked about things she'd never told anyone, cried about things she'd been holding inside for too long. Slowly, painfully, she started to heal. She got her GED. Then she enrolled in community college, criminal justice. She wanted to understand the system that had failed her so she could help make it better. She stayed in touch with Clara and Donna and the Brotherhood. Monthly phone calls that turned into weekly video chats. A network of people who loved her spread across 1,000 miles, but connected by something stronger than distance. Sophia and her sister Maria were thriving. They'd moved in with Clara, becoming part of her ever-growing family of survivors. Sophia started nursing school. Maria went back to high school, determined to graduate despite everything she'd been through. And on the anniversary of the night Grace first walked into Rusty's diner, something remarkable happened. She got a letter. No return address. Just her name written in careful, unfamiliar handwriting. Inside was a single page. Dear Grace, you don't know me, but I know you. I watched your testimony at the trial. I saw the courage it took to face my father in that courtroom. I want you to know that what you said to him that night about me, about who he used to be, that saved 2 lives. His because you gave him a reason not to pull the trigger. And mine because you gave me permission to finally stop running from what he'd become. I'm getting help now. Real help. And someday when I'm ready, I'd like to meet you, to thank you in person. Until then, please know that you're in my prayers. Rebecca Webb. Grace read the letter 3 times. Then she sat down and wrote back. 2 years after that night at Rusty's diner, Grace stood in front of a crowded ballroom. The Survivors Gala was an annual event, now raising money for trafficking victims across the country. Clara had started it. Donna helped organize it. The Brotherhood provided security. Grace was this year's keynote speaker. She looked out at the sea of faces. Survivors like her. Advocates like Clara. Heroes like Grizzly and Donna. Even Agent Wells was there now, retired from the FBI, and working full-time for the anti-trafficking task force they'd helped create. Grace took a deep breath. 3 years ago, I walked into a roadside diner in Oklahoma. I was 18 years old. I hadn't eaten in 5 days. I was running from a man who had stolen everything from me, my freedom, my dignity, my hope. I thought I was going to die. And she paused, letting the words settle. Instead, I found a family. Not the family I was born into, though I'm blessed to have them back in my life. I mean the family we choose, the people who see our brokenness and love us anyway, the strangers who become brothers and sisters because they refuse to look away from suffering. Her eyes found Donna in the crowd. The woman who had heard her whispered confession and decided to care. A waitress saw a scared girl and chose to listen. A group of bikers saw injustice and chose to fight. An FBI agent saw corruption in her own agency and chose to risk everything for the truth. None of them had to help me. None of them owed me anything. They helped because that's who they are, because they understand that we're all connected, all part of the same human family. She found Grizzly next, the man who had lost his daughter and channeled his grief into saving others. I stand here today because of them, because when I was at my lowest, when I had nothing left but a whisper and a prayer, they answered. They showed me that even in the darkest places there are people who carry light. Grace's voice strengthened. I used to think being a survivor meant just staying alive. I know better now. Surviving isn't just about breathing. It's about choosing every single day to keep going, to keep hoping, to keep believing that the world can be better than it is. She looked at Sophia and Maria sitting together in the front row, their hands intertwined. It's about taking the worst thing that ever happened to you and turning it into the best thing you ever do for someone else. Grace smiled through her tears. 3 years ago, I whispered 4 words to a stranger in a diner. I haven't eaten in days. That whisper changed my life. It brought me family. It brought me purpose. It brought me here to this stage telling my story to all of you. She straightened her shoulders. So here's what I want you to remember. Your whisper matters. Your courage matters. That moment when you choose to speak up, to reach out, to help someone who's drowning, that moment can change everything. Not just for them, for you too. Grace looked out at the audience one final time. We don't need capes to be heroes. We don't need special powers or perfect lives. We just need to care enough to listen, to act, to love. Her voice rang out clear and strong. The world is full of monsters, but it's also full of people who fight them. People like the ones in this room tonight. People like you. She raised her glass. To the listeners. To the fighters. To the ones who refuse to look away. You are the reason survivors like me get to stand here and tell our stories. You are the reason hope exists. The room rose to its feet. The applause was thunderous, but Grace barely heard it. She was looking at the back of the room where a woman about her age stood watching. Brown hair, nervous eyes, a face she'd only seen in photographs. Rebecca Webb. Their eyes met across the crowded ballroom. Grace smiled. Rebecca smiled back. And in that moment, Grace understood something she'd been struggling to grasp for 3 years. Healing wasn't about forgetting the past. It wasn't about pretending the pain never happened. It was about finding meaning in the suffering, purpose in the darkness, light in the deepest shadows. She'd walked into a diner broken and starving and alone. She'd walked out with a family, a purpose, and a future, not because she was special, not because she deserved it more than any other girl who'd suffered what she'd suffered, but because one person had chosen to listen. One person had chosen to care. One person had chosen to act. And that had made all the difference. After the gala, Grace found Donna waiting by the exit. That was beautiful, sweetheart. I meant every word. Donna pulled her into a hug. I know you did. That's what made it beautiful. They stood there for a moment, two women bound by a whisper in a diner 3 years ago. What now? Donna asked. Grace smiled. Now I keep going, keep fighting, keep helping girls like me find their way home. You sure you're ready for that? Grace thought about everything she'd been through. The basement, the auction, the trial, the healing that was still ongoing, and probably always would be. No, she said honestly. But I'm going to do it anyway. That's what survivors do. Donna's eyes glistened. Lily would be proud of you. I hope so. I hope she knows what her father started, what her memory has meant to so many girls. She knows. Donna squeezed her hand. Wherever she is, she knows. They walked out into the night together. Above them, stars scattered across the Oklahoma sky like promises waiting to be kept. Behind them, a ballroom full of survivors celebrated another year of freedom. Ahead of them, a future that once seemed impossible, now stretched out full of possibility. Grace had walked into Rusty's diner with nothing but a whisper and a desperate hope. She'd walked out with everything that mattered: family, purpose, love, and the knowledge that even the smallest voice can change the world if someone is brave enough to listen.